Hey everyone, finish watching the next episode of Super Samurai, The Master Returns. Jaden thinks back to the last time he fought Decker. In training, he easily beats his whole team at once, minus Antonio. Mike thinks Jaden is taking things too seriously. Mentor G takes Jaden somewhere on his motorcycle. In the Netherworld, Xandrid is annoyed by the furry warts humming the theme song. He complains that his medicine isn't working and the furry warts mimic him. Elsewhere, Dayu's furry wart also repeats, "Medicine not working." So are the furry warts a hive mind? Jaden and G talk about what Decker said to Jaden. Jaden is worried he's become weaker from relying on his team. Back in the Netherworld, Octoroo has figured out Serrator knows where Dayu's harmonium is. He demands to have it brought back. Maybe it can soothe Xandrid's headaches. While going to get it, Octoroo recalls when Xandrid first met Dayu. Xandrid was once filled with uncontrollable rage, but when he heard Dayu's sad music, it calmed him. Suddenly, Octoroo's thoughts are interrupted as Serrator attacks. Octoroo defends himself and escapes back to the Netherworld. The Rangers detect Serrator's presence and go to check things out. Dayu goes as well. Decker just wanders around the woods, I guess. Serrator is in the process of using a device to locate something. He's about to place the harmonium somewhere just as the Rangers arrive. He sends out Moogers and goes back to whatever he was doing before. Suddenly, Dayu attacks him. Serrator admits to her that he never intended to fix her harmonium, and she's just been a pawn in his bigger plan. He blasts her, but before he can do anything more, the ground shakes. In the Netherworld, Octoroo has revealed Serrator's treachery to Xandrid. He prepares to leave the Netherworld, despite Octoroo's warning that he's in danger of drying out. He even knocks Octoroo away with his sword. Xandrid faces the Rangers, and as Octoroo warned, he begins to dry out. Xandrid ignores it and blasts at Serrator. Serrator retreats, dropping the harmonium. Jaden tries to take on Xandrid alone, but is easily thrown back. His team try to fight back, but Xandrid deflects everything they try. Jaden tries powering up to super mode, but even that isn't enough to stand up to Xandrid. Luckily, Xandrid is more interested in retrieving the harmonium. He returns it to Dayu in exchange for her loyalty. He rips off part of either his skin or his armor and repairs the harmonium. Octoroo takes Xandrid back to the Netherworld, but first sends out some giant Moogers. They have a giant cannon like the one an episode ago. Anyway, the Rangers call the Zords. Kevin powers up to Shogun mode and defeats the Moogers. Why did he need Shogun mode for friggin' Moogers? Man, Shogun mode really is useless. The Rangers take Jaden back home. He's wounded, but in a child-friendly way that shows no blood or broken limbs. In the Netherworld, Xandrid soaks in the Sanzu River. Serrator returns, much to Octoroo's displeasure. This was a pretty good episode. There's little things that don't work, but overall, this is definitely one of the strongest episodes of the season. I love the dynamic of the villains, except Decker. He doesn't really do much of anything this episode. I really don't know why the crew bothered with him coming back. His story was over. Now he's just a hanger-on from the past. Kinda like Bulk and Spike. Speaking of which, Bulk and Spike get a little interaction with G and a callback to a few episodes ago where they trained with Emily. I appreciate the nod to continuity, but it's completely expendable. Octoroo is at his best this episode. I've always liked undyingly loyal characters, and Octoroo was so devoted to Xandrid he'll really do anything for him. Even after he's hurt by Xandrid, he risks himself to save him. What's even more fascinating is that he's an evil monster, something typically unsympathetic, but over the course of the show, Octoroo has become a more complex character. Serrator's treachery is finally out in the open, and I've so missed this. Villain treachery is a theme that goes all the way back to Lord Zed's introduction back in Mighty Morphin Season 2. Goldar turns on Rita to serve Zed, and later in Season 3, Master Vile invites himself in and tries to take over things before getting fed up and leaving. Zeo had Rita and Zed blow up the Machine Empire royal family. The Turbo movie had Divatox, rethink marrying a mindless monster. Not quite treachery, but Turbo had villains who got along for the most part.
Oh, wait, Divatox does toss Elgar down a magic volcano, but he turns out okay and doesn't hold a grudge at all.
In space had Darkonda and Ecliptor's rivalry, and Dark Spectre, who showed no hesitation in brainwashing his own minions. Darkonda also tries to take Dark Spectre out. Lost Galaxy has probably the fan favorite of treacherous villains, Deviat. Ironically, this season had a villain named Treacheron, and he turned out to be one of the more honorable villains. Deviat cared about no one but himself and did whatever he could to survive. He would sacrifice every ally he had at a given moment if it benefited him. Lightspeed Rescue had Queen Banshira, quite the slimy monster. She laughs at her own son's defeat and willingly uses her own servants as pawns. She's utterly remorseless. Time Force had slightly more complicated villains than usual. Rancic was an unhinged madman who burned down the home of a man who helped him and left the man for dead. The man became the robot Frax and attempted to take revenge on Rancic. Wild Force had many villains that continually backstabbed or showed no care for anyone but themselves. Only Jindrax and Toxica learned empathy eventually. Ninja Storm is where the villain treachery gets sloppy, and it's also the first Disney season. Weird. Vexicus is plotting against Lothor from the start and takes out various other villains for fun, I guess. Dino Thunder has Mesagog and Elsa randomly start considering Zeltrax an enemy. SPD had Broodwing randomly decide to try and take over Earth himself, seemingly not caring if Brum retaliates. Mystic Force had Imperius, a delightfully slimy villain who only wanted whatever he could use. He tries to poison his minion's leader, but unfortunately he gets killed off pretty quickly. Ironic that a season with some of the worst developed villains also gave us one of the few good ones. Oh, and then there was that one time someone gave Necroli a crossbow and told her to shoot Korag for some reason. No logical motivation, but I just found that one funny. Operation Overdrive's villains all constantly backstabbed each other, but it was usually at random. Jungle Fury was full of villains that like to manipulate, but not necessarily backstab. It happens a few times, like when a bunch of Phantom Beasts try to kill Camille for some reason. RPM had some good villains, led by Venjix. Venjix was a character similar to Banshira or Imperius, willing to sacrifice whoever they had to survive. Samurai, as a whole, has just been far more solid than most of the Disney seasons, probably because it's sticking to Shinkenger so closely as its basis. Xandrid is a powerful monster, and it's not just something the episode tells us, we see it. He's fast, he's strong, unstoppable. Even when he has the handicap of drawing out, he pushes the Rangers to their limits. Past seasons, and even past episodes of Samurai, have certain monsters that are stronger than usual just because, but Xandrid feels natural and organic. He's the character Mordecon should have been back in Mystic Force. Jaden ends up in bad shape, and I really wish Power Rangers could show bloody lips, scrapes, and bandaged cuts like Sentai. Sentai does tend to overdo it sometimes with bandaged wounds, but it adds to the drama and weight of the situation. I feel in this instance especially, it would make sense for Jaden to at the very least have some bruises. There's a funny thing in the end credits. Instead of just Decker, the credits read Voice of Decker Monster. It's the only credit for Ricardo Medina here, so why not just Decker? Why Decker Monster? I don't recall seeing him credited this way on other episodes. The Shinkenger counterpart this time is pretty close, but there's a few notable changes. While training at the beginning, Takeru, the Red Ranger, only spars with Chiaki, the Green Ranger. Ryonosuke, the Blue Ranger, notices Takeru getting heated and yells at him to stop right before he accidentally hits Chiaki. It's a far more intense scene, despite only being a one-on-one fight instead of the nearly full team over here. Genta, the Gold Ranger, gets a subplot about being featured in a magazine. It's a tonally odd bit in an otherwise more serious episode. Maybe it's what inspired Bulk and Spike to be featured in a superfluous scene. I prefer Bulk and Spike's scene, but neither are necessary. Dayu's backstory is very different in the two series. Over here, she was turned into a Nylok by Serrator and then taken in by Xandrid. In Shinkenger, she becomes a monster on her own, and Dakoku, Xandrid's counterpart, reveals he'd been waiting for that moment so he could make her part of his crew. Serrator's weird little device doesn't get an explanation in either show. Both episodes were good this time. I can't decide which I like more. So that's it for this one. Hope you enjoyed it. See ya.
Medicine not